The call came at 2 a.m. My grandparents, the only people who truly loved me, died instantly in a head-on collision. I collapsed to my knees, my world shattered. 3 days later, their lawyer pulled me aside after the funeral. His words changed everything. Mac, they left you everything, all $26 million. My family's eyes transformed from grief to greed in seconds. I never imagined their true colors would emerge so quickly, or that my grandparents' final gift would tear us apart forever. Before I continue this story, let me know where you're watching from and hit that like and subscribe button if family drama gets your blood pumping. My relationship with my grandparents was special from the beginning. Unlike my parents, who were always chasing the next promotion or business deal, Grandpa Jack and Grandma Rose made time for me. I spent every summer at their lakeside home from age 8 until college. They taught me to fish, to build things with my hands, and most importantly, to recognize my own worth. My family dynamic was complicated. My father Thomas worked 80-hour weeks in corporate finance, while my mother Patricia ran her interior design business. My older sister Julia followed in Dad's footsteps, becoming equally obsessed with status and appearance. My younger brother Adam was the golden child, the star athlete, who could do no wrong. I was the middle child, the quiet one who preferred books to sports and never quite fit the family mold. What no one in the family discussed was that Grandpa Jack had built a substantial fortune through smart real estate investments in the 1970s and 80s. They lived comfortably but modestly in their lakefront home, driving the same car for 15 years at a time. They donated generously but anonymously to local causes. Money was just a tool to them, not an identity. My 29th birthday passed with the usual perfunctory call from my parents and a generous check from my grandparents. I was struggling as a high school English teacher in Boston, living in a tiny apartment and paying off student loans. That evening, Grandpa called to check on me. "Remember, Mac, true wealth is not counted in dollars," he said. "It is measured in moments and relationships." I had no idea this would be our final conversation. 3 days later, a semi-truck driver fell asleep at the wheel on Route 16. My grandparents never saw it coming. The police said they died instantly, a small mercy I clung to in the darkness that followed. I received the news from my father, his voice uncharacteristically shaken. "They are gone, Mac. Both of them." The world seemed to stop rotating. These two people who had been my emotional anchors were suddenly gone. The days before the funeral passed in a blur. I took emergency leave from school and drove to my parents' suburban mansion. Family members I barely recognized began arriving from across the country, many of whom I had not seen visit my grandparents in years. Aunt Deborah, my father's sister, arrived with her husband Frank and their adult twins. Uncle Robert, my mother's brother, flew in from California with his third wife. Cousins I only knew from Christmas cards suddenly appeared, all expressing their devastating grief. At the funeral home, I noticed something strange. Between tearful remembrances, family members were huddled in corners, speaking in hushed tones. I caught fragments. Substantial estate. The lakehouse must be worth millions. Investment portfolio. My stomach tightened. They were discussing assets while my grandparents lay in caskets. The funeral service was beautiful but surreal. I delivered a eulogy that had me fighting back tears with every word. Looking out at the packed church, I recognized faces of local community members whose lives had been touched by my grandparents' generosity. In the front pews, my family sat stoically, tissues occasionally dabbing at dry eyes. At the reception afterward, Harold Fitzgerald, my grandparents' lawyer for over 40 years, approached me. A tall, silver-haired man with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, he asked if I could meet him at his office the following morning. "There are matters we need to discuss," he said quietly. My father, overhearing this, frowned. "Anything regarding my parents can be discussed with the whole family," he interjected. Harold simply stated, "The instructions I have are quite specific," and walked away. That evening at my parents' house, the tension was palpable. "What do you think the old man wants?" my brother Adam asked, trying to sound casual. "Probably just some personal items they wanted Mac to have," my mother suggested, though her tone indicated she did not believe it. My sister Julia was less subtle. "Did Grandpa ever mention their will to you?" "Mac." I shook my head honestly. Money had never been our focus. I could not sleep that night. Grief kept washing over me in waves, memories of my grandparents surfacing unexpectedly. The fishing trips, the way Grandma would bake my favorite cookies whenever I visited, how Grandpa taught me to change oil in my first car. These precious moments now existed only in my memory. By morning, exhaustion had left me numb, unprepared for the bombshell that would change everything. Harold's office was in a historic building downtown, unchanged since the 1980s. His assistant, an elderly woman named Margaret, led me to a conference room where Harold waited with a thick folder. "Mac," he began gently, "your grandparents were extraordinary people who cared deeply about you." He pushed his glasses up. "What I am about to share may come as a shock, but they were very clear about their wishes. Your grandparents amended their will 3 years ago," Harold explained, opening the folder. "They have named you Mac Anderson as the sole beneficiary of their entire estate." I stared at him, uncomprehending. "What does that mean exactly?" Harold cleared his throat. "It means that all their assets, including the lakehouse, their investment portfolio, insurance policies, and liquid assets valued at approximately $26 million, will transfer to you." The room seemed to tilt. "$26 million," I whispered. "That cannot be right." "What about my parents? My siblings?" Harold's expression remained professional. "They were explicit, Mac. The will includes a letter explaining their decision." He slid an envelope across the table. My hands trembled as I opened it, recognizing Grandma's elegant handwriting. "Dearest Mac," the letter began, "if you are reading this, our time has come to an end. We have watched you grow into a compassionate, hard-working young man who values the right things in life. We have also observed with sadness how your parents and siblings have become consumed by materialism and status values contrary to what truly matters. We fear that leaving our money to them would only feed these tendencies. You, however, will use these resources wisely and for good. We trust you completely. All our love, Grandpa Jack and Grandma Rose." Tears blurred my vision. Their words captured exactly what I knew of them, but the responsibility overwhelmed me. "There must be some mistake," I murmured. Harold shook his head. "They were of sound mind and absolutely certain. They also anticipated." He paused, resistance from the rest of the family. "That is why they appointed me as executor with specific instructions to protect your interests." As Harold outlined the next steps, my phone began buzzing incessantly. Somehow the news had already reached my family. 12 missed calls from my father, 8 from my mother, texts from both siblings. I silenced it, focusing on Harold's explanation of the probate process and what to expect. "This will not be easy, Mac," he warned. "Family and inheritance can bring out the worst in people." When I finally left Harold's office, my father was waiting in the parking lot, his luxury sedan idling. "Get in," he commanded. His face was flushed with anger. During the silent drive home, I felt like a prisoner being transported to trial. At the house, everyone was gathered in the living room, faces tight with suppressed emotion. "Explain yourself," my father demanded once we were inside. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "I did not know anything about this until today," I said honestly. "Grandpa and Grandma made their decision. I am still processing it myself." My mother scoffed. "Process it? While you are suddenly a multi-millionaire, and the rest of us get nothing." My sister Julia paced the room. "This is absurd." They were clearly manipulated. Uncle Robert stood up. "Your grandparents were not thinking clearly. They were elderly." "We could contest this." Aunt Deborah nodded vigorously. "It is the only fair thing. That money should be distributed among all family members." I looked around at their indignant faces, remembering how rarely any of them had visited my grandparents in recent years. "They were perfectly lucid," I countered. "And they made this decision years ago." My father stepped toward me, jabbing his finger. "Listen to me, Mac. We are your family. Your mother and I gave you everything. We paid for your education. We supported you when you chose that teaching job instead of something worthwhile. You owe us." The accusation stung. "Gave me everything." "You were barely present. Grandpa and Grandma were the ones who came to my school events, who called regularly, who actually knew me." The room fell silent. These were truths we never acknowledged. My mother recovered first, her tone softening strategically. "Honey, we are just shocked. Surely you understand this does not seem fair. Your father and I are their children. Fair. My brother Adam jumped in. What is fair about you getting $26 million when you have done nothing to deserve it? You are a nobody, Mac. A teacher making $40,000 a year. You would not even know how to handle that kind of money. Each word was carefully chosen to wound, to diminish me. For hours, the attacks continued, alternating between guilt manipulation and outright hostility. My cousin Tina suggested I was mentally unstable and could not manage such wealth. Uncle Frank implied I had somehow coerced my grandparents. My mother cried about family legacy and her parents' betrayal. Through it all, I remained steadfast, though inside, I was crumbling. As evening fell, my father delivered the ultimatum. Here is what is going to happen, he said coldly. You are going to contact Harold tomorrow and arrange to distribute the inheritance equally among family members. If you refuse, you are no longer welcome in this house or this family. The room held its breath, waiting for my capitulation. I stood up, surprising myself with my steadiness. I will not do that, I said quietly. Grandpa and Grandma trusted me with their legacy for a reason. I intend to honor that trust. My father's face darkened. Then pack your things and get out. You are no longer my son. My mother gasped but did not contradict him. My siblings stared at the floor. In 20 minutes I had packed everything I had brought. No one came to my room. No one tried to change my mind. At the front door, my mother appeared, eyes red but resolute. You are choosing money over family, she said. I shook my head sadly. No, Mom. I am honoring the only family members who ever truly saw me. That is the difference. I walked out into the night, uncertain where I would go, but knowing I could not stay. I spent that night in a budget motel on the edge of town, my mind racing through the day's events. Everything had changed in 24 hours. I had lost my grandparents, discovered an inheritance beyond imagination, and been disowned by my immediate family. Sleep eluded me as I stared at the water-stained ceiling, questioning everything. Was I doing the right thing? Would my grandparents approve of how I had handled this? By dawn, I had my answer. I called Harold as soon as his office opened. I need to see the lakehouse, I told him. And I need your help with something else. 2 hours later, we met at my grandparents' property. The familiar winding driveway, the sprawling lawn sloping down to the lake, the white colonial house with its wide porch, where Grandpa and I had spent countless evenings talking about life. It was all mine now, but emptier without them. Harold had brought the house keys and critical documents. The property is secure, he assured me. I have had the locks changed as a precaution following your grandparents' instructions. Inside, everything remained exactly as they had left it. Grandma's reading glasses beside her favorite armchair. Grandpa's half-completed crossword puzzle. The wall of family photos where I featured prominently, far more than any other family member. In Grandpa's study, Harold showed me to the safe hidden behind a painting. Your grandfather wanted you to have access immediately, he said, entering the combination. Inside were important documents, jewelry, and a smaller envelope with my name on it. Another letter, this one in Grandpa's distinctive handwriting. Mac, it read. If you are reading this, Harold has followed our instructions. You are probably facing considerable pressure from the family. Stand firm. We have watched for years, as they have treated both you and us as afterthoughts, until they wanted something. Your inheritance is not just money. It is a chance to live authentically without being under their influence. In the bottom drawer of this desk, you will find evidence of why we could not trust them with our legacy. Be strong. We believe in you. The drawer contained a folder of correspondence and legal documents spanning years. Loan requests from my father that were never repaid. Letters from my mother demanding additional funds for family investments that never materialized. A proposed legal document, never signed, that would have given my parents control of my grandparents' assets while they were still alive. And most damning emails between my parents and siblings discussing strategies to accelerate their inheritance by moving my grandparents into assisted living against their wishes. Did you know about this? I asked Harold, my hands shaking with anger and betrayal. He nodded grimly. I advised your grandparents on these matters. It is why they were so determined to protect their assets from those who saw them only as a means to wealth. The pieces fell into place. My family's sudden appearance at the funeral. their outrage at being bypassed. They had been planning this for years. "I am moving in today," I decided. "This is my home now." Harold nodded approvingly. "I anticipated you might. I have taken the liberty of arranging security for the property. Recent circumstances suggest it would be prudent." He introduced me to Samantha Torres, a former military police officer who now ran a private security firm. "Miss Torres and her team will ensure your safety and privacy." I spent that day settling in each room, holding memories that brought both comfort and grief. I found myself talking aloud to my grandparents as I moved through their home, now mine. "I will take care of this place, I promise, the empty rooms. I will make you proud." That night I slept in the guest room I had always used, during visits unable to face their bedroom yet. Morning brought a flurry of calls from Harold. My family was mobilizing. They had consulted attorneys about contesting the will. They were spreading rumors about my mental stability and claiming undue influence. "It is all noise," Harold reassured me. "The will is ironclad. Your grandparents anticipated every challenge." Still, the emotional toll was mounting. I was having breakfast on the porch when security alerted me to vehicles approaching. 5 cars coming up the driveway led by my father's distinctive black Mercedes. "They are here," I told Harold over the phone. "All of them." His voice was calm. "Remember, you are within your rights. The property is yours. Miss Torres knows the legal boundaries." I stood on the front steps as the cars parked haphazardly on the circular driveway. My entire extended family emerged, faces set with determination. My father strode forward, flanked by my mother and siblings. "This has gone far enough," he announced loudly. "We are here to discuss reasonable terms before this gets ugly." Before I could respond, the front door opened behind me. Harold stepped out, followed by Samantha and 2 of her security team members. Next came District Attorney Marion Walsh, whom I had never met but whose reputation for prosecuting financial crimes was legendary. And finally, a court stenographer. "What is this, my father?" demanded, faltering slightly. "Mr. Anderson," Harold addressed my father. "Formally, your son has agreed to meet with you, but given recent threats and the documented history of attempted financial exploitation of your parents, we felt it prudent to have witnesses." He gestured to D.A. Walsh. "The district attorney has been reviewing certain documents that raise serious concerns about your prior actions toward your parents." My family froze, shock registering on their faces. My father's confident facade cracked. "What documents? What is he talking about?" My mother grabbed his arm, her knuckles white. My siblings exchanged panicked glances. In their eyes I saw the realization dawning. The tables had turned completely. They had come to intimidate me, but now found themselves potentially facing legal consequences. The confrontation that morning ended with my family retreating in disarray. D.A. Walsh had made it clear that any further harassment could trigger an investigation into their past attempts to manipulate my grandparents financially. As their cars disappeared down the driveway, I felt a complex mixture of vindication and profound sadness. These people were my blood relatives, yet they had shown themselves willing to destroy me for money. In the days that followed, I began the process of truly settling into my new reality. The lakehouse felt both like sanctuary and museum, each room preserving memories of my grandparents, while also demanding that I make it my own. I spent hours in Grandpa's study reading through family documents and financial records, gradually understanding the empire they had built through decades of wise investments and careful planning. Harold became my guide through the complexities of wealth management. "Your grandparents were extraordinary stewards," he explained during our meetings. "They built this fortune not through flashy risks, but through patience and principle." I learned how they had purchased properties in neglected neighborhoods, improved them without displacing residents, and created affordable housing that generated steady returns while helping communities. My career required attention too. After careful consideration, I decided to take a leave of absence from teaching to focus on understanding my inheritance. The school principal was understanding, if somewhat bemused by my explanation. "Take the time you need, Mac," she said. "Your position will be here if you decide to return." I did not tell her that returning to my $42,000 salary was now optional, not necessary. Legal challenges from my family materialized as Harold had predicted. My father hired an aggressive attorney who filed motions contesting the will on grounds of undue influence and diminished capacity. Each claim required responses, depositions, and court appearances. Through it all, Harold remained unflappable. "These are desperation tactics," he assured me. "The evidence of your grandparents' competence and deliberate planning is overwhelming." The most difficult moment came when my mother attempted a different approach. She arrived alone at the lakehouse, crying and apologetic. "We have all been under such stress," she pleaded. "Your father went too far. We just want to find a compromise, a way to be family again." For a moment, I wavered, the child in me still longing for parental approval. Then I remembered the documents in Grandpa's desk, the years of manipulation. "I am sorry, Mom," I said firmly. "I cannot trust that this is not just another strategy." 6 months after my grandparents' death, the court definitively rejected all challenges to their will. The inheritance was legally and finally mine, without condition. I sat alone on the dock that evening, watching the sunset paint the lake in shades of gold and crimson. "We did it, Grandpa and Grandma," I whispered to the fading light. "But now the real work begins." That work started with establishing the Jack and Rose Anderson Foundation, dedicated to educational opportunities for underprivileged students and affordable housing initiatives, my grandparents' two passions. I transferred $12 million to the foundation, ensuring their legacy would continue helping others for generations. With Harold's guidance, I developed a personal financial plan that was both conservative and purposeful. I paid off my student loans and set aside funds to maintain the lakehouse. I invested in the same kind of community-focused real estate my grandparents had valued. I established a comfortable but not excessive living stipend for myself. The remainder stayed invested according to ethical guidelines my grandparents would have approved. As months turned into a year, I began rebuilding my personal life as well. I returned to teaching part-time, finding renewed joy in connecting with students without financial stress hanging over me. I made new friends who knew nothing of my wealth, people who valued me for my character rather than my bank account. One of these was Emma, a local artist who taught at the community center. Our friendship gradually blossomed into something deeper, built on shared values and genuine connection. The most unexpected development came from my younger brother Adam. He arrived unannounced one afternoon alone, and visibly uncomfortable. "I have been doing a lot of thinking," he said hesitantly. "The way everyone behaved, the way I behaved, was wrong." His apology seemed sincere, his remorse genuine. "I miss my brother," he admitted, "and I think Grandpa and Grandma would be disappointed in me." It was the beginning of a cautious reconciliation, one built on his acceptance of my boundaries rather than my capitulation to demands. My parents and sister remained estranged by their choice. Occasional messages reached me through Adam, updates about family events, or thinly veiled inquiries about my financial situation. I responded with polite detachment, leaving the door open a crack while protecting myself from further manipulation. Their absence hurt, but it was a clean pain, honest and healing, unlike the toxic relationship we had maintained for years. 2 years after inheriting my grandparents' fortune, I stood once again on the dock at sunset, this time with Emma beside me. "Do you think they would approve of how I have handled everything?" I asked, a question that still surfaced regularly in quiet moments. She squeezed my hand. "You have honored their values while becoming your own person. That is exactly what they wanted for you." My journey taught me that true inheritance is not measured in dollars. What my grandparents really left me was the courage to define myself, to stand firm in my principles even when standing alone. They showed me that family is built through consistent love and respect, not merely through biological connection. Most importantly, they taught me that wealth brings responsibility, not just privilege. For anyone facing family conflict, betrayal, or difficult choices, I offer this hard-won wisdom. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is establish boundaries, even when it hurts. True connection cannot be bought or sold. It must be earned through integrity, maintained through honesty, and cherished through gratitude. Money can change your circumstances, but only you can decide if it changes your character. As the stars began appearing over the lake, I felt a deep peace that had been absent in those first turbulent months. My grandparents had given me not just financial security, but the ultimate gift: the freedom to become fully myself, unconstrained by others' expectations or demands. In honoring their legacy, I had discovered my own. And in that discovery, I found the healing that no inheritance alone could ever provide. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision that put you at odds with your family? How did you handle it? I would love to read about your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more real-life stories about family integrity and finding your own path. Share this with someone who might need to hear that sometimes standing your ground is the right thing to do, even when it is painful. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember, the true measure of wealth is not in your bank account, but in how you honor the values of those who loved you.